We're muted. Muted. Yeah.
Yeah. I can hear you.
Good. Can you hear us?
I am muted. Am I good?
Yep. There we go. We're good. Yeah.
Hey, okay, I'll start it then. So yeah, your Dodgers are your 2025 World Series champs. Back-to-back rings, 3 titles since 2020. We have a dynasty, folks, and we're going to talk all about it here with you tonight. We've got Cody, aka Canelo. We've got Anthony here as well, producer Roger behind the scenes, and as you know, I'm Drea. Before we get into it all, we want to make sure to tell you about DodgersBeat.com. Stay up to date and in the know with all of the latest and most comprehensive coverage of the LA Dodgers. It is your one-stop for articles, interviews, contests, merch, and more. Never miss a beat, and check out DodgersBeat.com. Oh my God, fellas, history is made tonight. Baseball's forever ruined. How are you? Please talk to me. Crazy night.
Yeah, it's just an ordinary run-of-the-mill game. What's the difference between this win and compared to a game in like mid-October or mid-August? Yeah, it feels like this entire World Series, it deserved to go 7 games. It deserved to go extra innings. And I think the best team end up winning. Once you go 7 games, it's up to a coin flip at that point. But yeah, this might be one of the craziest series I've ever experienced in my lifetime, especially having a rooting interest. There's probably other crazy World Series, but I'm not really invested because my team's not playing. There was many times where I thought the season was over. There's many times where I was like already doom posting. There was times where I was looking at free agent free agent list. I was looking at potential moves. That's the kind of like mentality that we had here until that 9th inning, and it kind of flipped where Miguel Rojas hits that home run, and I'm like, wait a second, there's like a chance here, but I didn't want to get too excited considering the way we looked offensively. But they got themselves off the mat. There's not much else I can complain about apart from that. I'm not going to be able to be at the parade at Monday. I'm trying to trade my shift like crazy. No one's picking it up because I think everyone wants to be there as well. So, we'll see, but that's my only complaint, that it's on a Monday. But yeah, I couldn't be more happier. Back to back, a dynasty. You officially solidified yourself as a dynasty tonight.
Oh my God, Cody, we're a dynasty. Is this not the best World Series ever? So much talk about it.
Well, it was definitely one of the most stressful ones. Kind of, we were kind of on the ropes there at the end of the game. I was looking forward to coming in here, kind of trying to cheer everybody up in the chat, and kind of with you guys in here, looking forward to the offseason. And then just one swing off the bat of Miguel Rojas. I mean, even Mookie Betts said it in the post-game show, with David Ortiz, they have the utmost faith and confidence that Miggy Rowe could do something there, but nobody really thought he was going to hit a home run. If you told anybody that he was going to hit a game-tying home run in the 9th inning, I mean, they probably would have thought you were crazy. So clearly this was probably one of the most singular stressful games I've ever watched, up there with like 2017, I think it was like game 5 that went back and forth where I think the Dodgers lost like 13-12. That one is up there. The 18-inning thriller just a couple days ago, that's up there. 2018, that same extra inning thriller, that's up there as well. But today, kind of just this type of offense the Blue Jays had, and the pitchers that we only trusted to throw out there. I mean, Yamamoto going like 3 innings today almost, and he pitched 6 innings yesterday, almost 100 pitches. You're kind of saying, how much gas has he got? Dodgers have to score sooner than later, or else if they let a run score, then the game's over and the season's done. So definitely stressful, but in the end, Will Smith came through in extra innings. Dodgers rode Yamamoto to the finish line, and they're staring at the first back-to-back championship in 25 years. And Freddie Freeman said it best. This is my mentality now too. We'll definitely go into everything with this game, this series, but I'm looking forward to the offseason. I'm looking forward to do a three-peat. I mean, every time they win a World Series, I always tell myself, what feels really good, the next one. I mean, honestly, that's what they're kind of on that run right now. And it does sound a little selfish. You want to enjoy it right now. But yeah, I mean, the Dodgers, this golden era of baseball isn't over anytime soon, but this one feels really good to do back to back, something that hasn't been done in over a quarter century.
I mean, it is so amazing. I don't have words. All my notes were for getting ready for a loss, so I'm just kind of winging it right now. But yeah, Anthony, you put something really awesome in our text chain. I thought it was so rad. You said ruining baseball is fun. How much fun is this? It's so great.
Yeah, it wasn't fun for a few moments there. Again, I was very mentally in a very dark place, just considering the fact that some of those at bats. The season's over now. We're back-to-back champions, so I could care less about the at bat quality now, knowing that we've repeated as champions. But yeah, I just felt like the biggest thing I wanted was just go in there and give yourself a fighting chance. If you go down fighting and swinging to the very bitter end, which they ended up doing. They fought to the very end, forced extra innings. The Blue Jays probably regret that they reverted back to kind of the Dodger way, essentially. Kind of just they had many opportunities to kind of blow that game wide open, and it just didn't happen for them. But yeah, ruining baseball is fun right now. The ultimate way to ruin baseball is if you find a way to win the World Series next year and then we go into a lockout, then you're the three-time champ. And at that point, I could care less about baseball. Like, I have the last laugh. I am a three-time world champion at that point. And then even if baseball comes back in a short season, can someone remind me who won the last World Series in a shortened season? Oh, yeah, the Los Angeles Dodgers. So then you'd be going 4 times in a row. So I'm here for ruining baseball. The evil empire now resides here in Los Angeles, California, and I'm ready to ruin it in the offseason as well.
Oh my God, we're getting another parade. We are ruining baseball. And you know what? I don't care because who's going to say Mickey Mouse ring now? I am even more happy that it was against a team that Springer was on. I feel like it's redemption for what happened in 2017. I am so happy Kersh got his ring. I know it's all I've been talking about. I could go on and on about all the things that I'm just so happy that are now in place for our dynasty. But yeah, Cody, should that wedge ball in that last game get a ring too? Because there's a little bit of luck will seem to be on our side.
Yeah, I mean, this, maybe Blake Snell was right. A lot of luck went into a lot of these Blue Jays hits, and credit to them. This was the hardest team the Dodgers faced clearly all October. I thought the Phillies would have been the biggest challenge, and they were to some extent, but it was a 5-game series. So, once you saw the Dodgers go up 2-0, you kind of had a feeling that they were going to take care of business, and they did, courtesy of the walk-off that everybody's still talking about in my neighborhood. But the Blue Jays, man, they just put the ball in play. At 1 through 9, I mean, they're just a tough out to get, which, it's kind of like a retrospective for baseball in general. The Dodgers today, how did they tie the game and win the game? They slugged. And for a lot of the part of this series, they struck out a lot. And that's kind of been their motto. They like to drive up the pitch count. They like to hit the long ball. Chicks dig the long ball, and everyone loves the Los Angeles Dodgers right now. And the Blue Jays just do things differently. They do things the way a lot of, college teams do it, or like old fashioned baseball where just put the ball in play and good things will happen. And that's what they did all season. There's a reason why they fired their hitting coach, got a new one, and then they pretty much, changed up their offensive approach top to bottom. They ended up being one of the best offensive teams in baseball this year, large part to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., living up to his $500 million contract. They're a big market team. They got starting pitching. This was a big showdown between two really good baseball teams. Don't let anybody tell you different. There's a reason why they both were here. But it was hard for the Dodgers. And this series did revolve a little bit around our luck. We talked about Rojas. That's kind of just luck right there. Like talent, obviously, veteran, leadership. He's one of those guys that's more of a vocal leader than, talent-wise. But, he saved this game and yesterday on like multiple occasions. He had the barehanded play yesterday. Today he hits the tying home run, and then he saves the run with, he saves a run and getting that in front of that ball, picking it, not, getting the moment to him. And like, we saw Keckering, have a moment get to him, and he made the wrong play. Rojas collected himself, looked at first, looked at third, looked at second base to see if maybe there was a double play there, but then he went straight to home with a clean throw, and Will Smith was able to keep his toe just on the home plate. So a lot of luck went into this one, but a lot of talent did. I think the Dodgers, my mindset was, over these last 2 games, I think the Dodgers just out-talented the Blue Jays. I still think the Blue Jays outplayed them this entire series from start to finish. Minus, the Blue Jays having no solution for Yamamoto. That was their kryptonite. They're never going to want to see Yamamoto's face in Canada, just because, they couldn't beat him in game 2. They couldn't beat him in game 6, and they couldn't touch him in game 7. And it's just crazy what he did today. And we haven't even gotten into that, but what he did was extremely rare to pitch in game 6 and come in game 7. I think it's only happened once in 60 years. The last guy to do it was Randy Johnson in 2001. And I mean, how good do we talk about Randy Johnson? I mean, he's like one of the best lefties of all time, one of the best pitchers of all time. So a lot of luck, a lot of talent, but I think the Dodgers, they're not going to take what they did today for granted.
No, they shouldn't. But yeah, props to the Blue Jays because they were just. I mean, if the Dodgers weren't in it, I probably would have been like, these guys need to take it all. They are that incredible, and you know that they're going to be giving, everyone a run for their money in the years to come. But yeah, speaking of Rojas, like you were just talking about, Cody. I mean, it almost kind of sad that he didn't like come in a little bit earlier in the season. Anthony, would we have been holding this trophy a little bit higher in the earlier part of the week if they had brought Rojas into the lineup?
You can say, but at the same time, it just felt like the Blue Jays were just doing everything perfectly. It felt like, I think even today, I don't think we had a clean 1, 2, 3 inning. I think they were just guys on, and they were doing all the little things right. I'm glad he came in defensively. I'm also glad that Dave Roberts, in his mind, decided to sub out Tommy Edman, Randy Pages out there defensively. I don't think Tommy Edman on a hobbled ankle gets to that ball. I think Kike probably gets to that ball, but even then, running at that angle is kind of a really difficult catch. So, yeah, ultimately, we won this game, surprisingly, on our defense. How many times throughout the year we talked about, like, the Dodgers are just a bad defensive team, and we ended up winning that world championship on our defense. And you need guys like Miguel Rojas in your locker room. I know the numbers are not like something that pop out instantly, but you kind of just need guys that are ready to play in the moment. This dude has been sitting on the bench for essentially a month, and he's been asked to come in cold and finish off the last 2 games of a World Series. He said it himself, if you stay prepared, you always will be prepared. So the moment didn't like catch him off guard, but yeah, just tremendous amount of like respect for him. I always used to think the only memory you'll have of Miguel Rojas is him saving Clayton Kershaw's no-hitter. And now you have Game 7. I know he didn't win MVP, but he's definitely MVP of Game 7 today. Without him, you lose the series.
And just to kind of piggyback off that, Anthony, because I know he said he wanted to do one more year, hopefully be with the Dodgers. Do you think they re-sign him?
At this point, I re-sign everyone. No, just yeah, actually, I would re-sign him for one more year. Like I said, you need that veteran, like kind of calm voice in there. Even the bench options, I think he would be that veteran bench option off the bench. And also, you kind of have him as a substitute in case like you need to give Mookie a breather. You need to give like a guy like Muncy a breather. A guy like I would assume Kim would be the starting second baseman at the start of next year, but I don't know. Just give guys breathers essentially, and for one more year, for what he makes, it's not really anything. So I wouldn't mind having Miguel Rojas back on this roster next year.
God, I'm so excited to see what the Dodgers are going to do in the offseason, but we'll get into that at a little bit later time. But let's just kind of start at the top with Shohei. He was our starting pitcher tonight. And, he was on shorter rest from my understanding than he had ever really been on. Maybe at one other time he was on short rest in the past. And we all weren't kind of sure how he was going to, come out. Is he going to be strong? Is he going to be hitting his marks? And ultimately he was, getting himself into a little bit of trouble. But the 3rd inning was the killer. So Cody, I know people are talking about it. Should Roberts have maybe pulled him just a little bit sooner and then we wouldn't have been in this mess all the way through?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think back to the first 2 innings of this game. It feels like it's so long ago. But yeah, I mean, Ohtani getting the start today was just a no-brainer. Clearly, with the rules in effect, the two-way player, if he starts a game, he can remain as DH when he comes out. If he comes in the bullpen, it gets a little bit, muggy in terms of how long is he going to stay in, and if he comes out and gets relieved, well, what position is he playing? Because if you want to keep his bat in the lineup, he's got to play somewhere. Roberts did say, maybe the outfield is a solution to that. We could throw him out there, but clearly the Dodgers didn't want to do that. He hasn't played the outfield, I think, in like 4 years. So not something that he's super familiar with, but I'm sure he would have been fine if he did it anyway. We kind of found out a little bit about, how much Ohtani can be pushed to the limit today. The two-way stuff, hitting, pitching, we got the full experience in the second half of the season, especially in October. We made a handful of starts. That NLCS game that you were at, pretty much the greatest individual performance in postseason, maybe even Major League Baseball history. But to start on 3 days rest after pitching a game after the previous day you went 18 innings and played into, midnight, and you throw 90 plus pitches, go into the 7th inning and pitch, and he looked fatigued that day. He looked fatigued today. And I think he just didn't have 100% of what he would have had if it was an ordinary start or if it was a start with extended rest. And you could see it. Command was definitely off. He struggled mightily. A lot of 3-2 bats, walked hitters, gave up some, hits on fastballs because he got into a fastball count where if you're in a 3-0 hole, a 3-1 hole, well, if you want to get back into it, Ohtani's a power pitcher. He's just going to throw you a fastball or a cutter, and his splitter just wasn't accurate today. So you can pretty much eliminate that pitch right off the bat. It's 50-50 if you're Dave Roberts. I would have probably sent him back out there for the third just because it's Ohtani. See what he can do and see if he can get a scoreless frame. When I was preparing myself for the loss of this game, I said, it sucks. Otani's going to take the L off of just 2 bad pitches, one to Vlad, one to Bo. And, that's kind of the storybook for the Blue Jays if they're World Series champions. They're 2 guys, homegrown players, came up big, and they beat the best player in baseball. Clearly, the Dodgers fought back, and they had their game plan. They kept it close, and credit to Dave Roberts. He said, we got to get Ohtani out of here. He gives up the home run. I don't want him to pitch out flustered and maybe try to do too much. I want him to focus on hitting now. We'll hand the ball off to Robleski. And then obviously that's the next storyline of this game too, which feels like forever ago with the benches clearing. But I think all in all, you got to bet on Ohtani. You got to bet on your guy. You're paying him $700 million for a reason. If anyone could have done it on 3 days rest and look good, it would have been him. And he still looked good, with the pitches. The movement was there. The velocity was definitely there. He was hitting like 100 miles per hour, especially in that inning. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe the moment got a little too big for him, but credit to his teammates for having his back. Cause besides he got on in the first inning and then he had like a broken bat single later in the game. He didn't really do much offensively today either. A lot of his teammates had his back today, especially the unsung heroes at the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it all worked out in the end. So, we can't really complain too much because all the right buttons in the end were pushed by Roberts. So props to him. But yeah, you brought up kind of just the fact that he is human and we don't always look at Ohtani as kind of one of us because he's such an extraordinary player. But it kind of brings me back to something I heard this week and just kind of didn't even really truly think about until broadcast mentioned that this was the first season where a series started out of the country and ended out of the country, starting with the Tokyo series and then of course being in Canada for the World Series. And the Dodgers were a part of both of those. So they literally started and they finished an entire series. And that's a lot of games. That's a lot of play. This obviously went to 7 innings. They played the 18-inning game. So it's kind of like 2 games in one. And not just Ohtani, but Anthony, do you think that all of our guys just got gassed, being that they were coming off another year ahead of this where they had an extra long season? It's just a lot on their bodies.
Yeah, you heard it when they got to Toronto here for Game 6 that they were just gassed mentally. I think they were more mentally exhausted than actual physical. And you'll hear from a lot of people that being mentally exhausted, it's a lot worse than being physically exhausted because once you lose your state of mind, you really just are just trying to grind out and it just becomes a process where you're trying to figure out a solution and you end up doing too much. But yeah, I'm actually kind of worried in the offseason now. I know we've just won back-to-back, but WBC is coming up in March, and I think we're going to have a lot of these guys playing and participating in that. That's kind of my worry going into next year. But in the grand scheme of things, I mean, back-to-back world champions, this is such a minor thing to be worried about at this point. But yeah, there's a lot of innings on those guys. I think when we're done celebrating this one and we go into the offseason scope of things, I think you do really have to get younger. These guys are going to be another year older. It's a lot of mileage on these guys. I love them all with my heart. I'm appreciative of it, but I think it's time that we do have to soft reset. We don't have to completely blow it up, but just have some younger arms, younger legs around the just kind of just developing and stuff like that. I felt like the Blue Jays was a perfect model of that. They have a good mix of young and old. A lot of their players, the young guys especially, it didn't look like they were worried or scared that they were playing in the World Series. They were kind of very, very comfortable. And the Dodgers kind of do a good job of that as well. I go back to the example of kind of when they first introduced Corey Seager to the main team. they kind of threw him out there into the playoffs immediately. Like, yeah, you're gonna like go play, and he kind of performed. And like that stuff you kind of have to do to kind of build confidence with your young players. The only way you're gonna know if they're any good is if you let them play in these big situations and stuff like that. So, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it's a lot of baseballs, but I think those guys are just overjoyed and over exfoliated. I don't think they had even the way they thought they probably did think that they could force a game 7, but just the vibes were so low after game 5. I don't know, they could have imagined they would win this game in extra innings here in Toronto. That's it reminded me of when the Cubs did it against the Guardians in extra innings late in that game. But even then, that was a rain delay induced game, which was even crazier. But yeah, I'm still kind of like shell shocked. I can't believe they found a way to win this championship, to be honest with you.
I can't either. Like I'm gonna have to process this all night. I'm gonna be watching footage all night, answering a lot of texts that I haven't even got to yet. But yeah, that just kind of takes me to just the kind of the progression of the game right after Ohtani left, and we did bring up Robleski for just a little bit. I was a little bit surprised to see him in the game. I wasn't really kind of banking that he would be there. I thought it was going to be straight starters for a while. But that play where I think it was Jimenez, you might have to remind me, Cody, where he was like almost getting hit, but then did get hit. And then it was kind of benches clearing incident. And then Robleski kind of got a little wordy there for a second, kind of didn't know where that was going to go. That there was no intent on our side. How did you take that play?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll go PG-13. Fuck that guy. I mean, like, that's legitimately like I'm usually gonna like kind of sympathize with the players and say, as a hitter, I wouldn't like to see, 3 straight pitches up and in. But if you're someone that watches Robleski pitch this whole year, that's kind of been his MO. He misses high. Just if you look at his arm angle, he'll miss high and inside to left-handed hitters. That's just what it was. The second pitch that almost hit him, he kind of flails his hand out in there. That's where you lose me. And then you complain about getting hit in that same spot in your hand. And Robleski, me and Anthony were talking about it yesterday. That dude's a dog. I mean, like, that guy has proven over the last, 2 series that he's been in whatever situation he's put into, he has, provided the Dodgers clutch outs. I mean, you can make an argument that he pitched better than Emmett Sheehan did in the bullpen. Sheehan had a couple blow-ups on him during the wild card, the division series. And then Roberts kind of just moved away from using him at all until kind of the past couple of days, and today included. But Robleski, man, he got his lane, he got the bridge. He went in and, he pitched yesterday, I believe, as well in game 6. And he was a dog, someone that Dave Roberts could connect to and say, you know what, this is who I need to get me like 3 or 4 outs, go out there and go do it. And he proved his point there. And then with, Andre Gimenez, you're in an 0-2 count. You're the number 9 hitter. I can assure you they don't want to put you on with George Springer coming up. As hobbled as he is, we know what he can do with the bat. You got Lucas, batting after him, and then Vladimir is also, a guy you don't want with runners on. The Dodgers' key to, holding Vlad at bay was, we may let him get on base, whether he walks, singles, doubles. As long as there's nobody on in front of him, he can't do too much damage by himself. So credit to their game plan against those guys. But yeah, there was no intent on it. I was furious that the umpires put warnings on, because that kind of changes the complexion of how you're going to pitch. And they brought it up during the broadcast. Like, I guess you just can't go inside anymore, because then, the Blue Jays manager could be like, hey, look, he went inside. He clipped one of our batters. That's eliminating a lot of the zone and the game planning and pitch selection, all that stuff for both managers. I was hoping that at some point in this game, it would come back to bite the Blue Jays. And then they would look back at that. Well, this guy, these 2 guys let tempers flare a little bit. Bullpens come out, dugouts empty. Weird. Game 7, benches clearing. I didn't have that on my bingo. There's a lot of stuff I didn't have on my bingo card. I didn't have Miguel Rojas going yard with the game tying home run. I didn't have the benches clearing. I didn't have this, this series going into extra innings, on multiple occasions. I mean, we had a lot happen in the span of like 8 hours today. It was just a crazy game.
This game had it all. And another thing that I was reminded of when you were talking was their manager was kind of, I think there was like an in-game interview with Ken Rosenthal, and he was calling Ohtani's, like, taking the time, in between, innings to kind of get warmed up back and forth. And he called it, quote unquote, egregious, and trying to kind of feel like drum up some drama there. Anthony, how did you take that? Was Ohtani being egregious?
No, because I love that they have the rules guy kind of explain it, kind of like football. Like, if he's the batter or the pitcher, he gets as much time as possible to kind of go out there and warm up. Yeah, he might be stretching a little bit here and there, but I mean, at that point, you're kind of just like looking for excuses. I also with the Andres Jimenez part, I kind of find it funny because like the Dodgers were dead at that point, and like that's kind of something like where you poke the bear, you poke the bear, you poke the bear, and you're careful what you do because you might wake them up. And I think that kind of might have been like a rallying cry for them, like, whoa, like
Uh,
let's kind of do something here. But yeah, I mean, with Shohei, I mean, he can take as much time as he wants, especially when he's the last guy on the base path as well too. But I don't know. I think it was like it was that, and it felt like the Blue Jays were just kind of like whining about it, like a lot of stuff. Like they had the opportunity. You had two chances at home to kind of like seal the deal, and I think they'll end up regretting probably dropping yesterday's game. I know today's is a heartbreaker, but yesterday was kind of like you had us down and out essentially, and like if it's not for Mookie Betts' two RBI single there, the Dodgers are very much dead as well too. So I don't know. I think both sides. Well, I think on the Blue Jays side at least, they're gonna regret a lot. Like there's just like certain they lost two games in extra innings and one was at home. And one of the reasons the other game went to extra innings is because Sir Anthony Dominguez left that meatball to Shohei, just unexplicably left it there for him to kind of handle. But I don't know. I think there's going to be a long off season for them. I couldn't imagine losing a World Series like this. It'd probably be devastating.
mhm.
Another year of just like I don't know if I'd consider it failure because they did make the World Series, but if they don't resign Bo Bichette and he leaves, like, what do you do? That's kind of like a big piece for you. And you got another guy like George Springer who's going to be another year older. Your pitching staff was kind of like they looked amazing, but like the only young guy on there is Trey Savage. The rest of these guys are over the hill, except for Shane Bieber, who's still like pretty young considering athlete age wise. But I don't know. I think if we would have lost this, I would have been in a very like, okay, like we lost, we sucked, but I like the way our future kind of plans out. I don't know where the Blue Jays are mindset is at right now because you have to consider the fact their division is going to get stronger. The Yankees are just not going to die down. Plus, they get Garrett Cole back. The Red Sox kind of had a little bit of a late jump there to end the season. So I don't know. We'll see where they're at next year, but at this point, like it's just I'm just joyous that we ended up finishing the job here because it was getting very dark here in this household. It got very quiet for a long portion of the game. Like no one was saying anything, and like you're just trying to like crack jokes and like break the tension, but like, no one said anything until even when like Miguel Rojas made contact. I thought that was gonna be like a long double. It didn't look like it was gonna go over the wall, and then once it went over the wall, it's kind of when we broke out into celebration here. But yeah,
Same.
I'm just happy we won.
I'm so happy we won. That was the same here. We were kind of like just looking at each other, going like, "Okay, brace yourself." But yeah, Cody, how was it at your place? Was the energy just kind of like down and then huge spike up?
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting there, you're looking through the lineup. I'm looking at my laptop, looking at the game day, saying, all right, what Rojas is putting together a really good at bat, fighting, grinding. I believe he got it to a full count there, so you got to get a strike. I tweeted it out, and I kind of, felt real about it. Hoffman, I've been talking about it. He used to be a Philadelphia Philly. A lot of guys that are Phillies fans around here that are good baseball knowledge guys, they were saying, he has a tendency to just get into a home run streak where hitters just can just hit home runs against him. And that was his entire second half with the Blue Jays this year. He had like the highest home run per 9 innings for a relief pitcher as a closer. That's not what you want. I mean, he was their version of Tanner Scott basically this year, blowing saves left and right. He ended up still being one of the top closers in the baseball, and he was really good this postseason. But I just said in the back of my head, I said, he's due for one. He's due for a clunker. The thing that proved the difference is the long up and down from when Snell came out, adjusted the mound for like 15 minutes, it felt like, and then pitched around some traffic, and then he had to come back in and pitch, the ninth inning. And I said, you know what, that probably was the difference right there. That's the game within the game, something that you're not going to look at during like a score sheet or whatever. You have to be watching it and seeing, the amount of time as a pitcher just sitting in there waiting for you to go into the game. Credit to Rojas, man. I mean, I went crazy just because I was in disbelief. I didn't really know what to expect with Rojas up there. I was kind of just saying, please get on base, especially when he got to 3-2. I said, just get on base, get a walk, set Shohei up, to getting it back. Because I was saying, if Ohtani comes up with nobody on, do they just walk him and then just go up against Will Smith? I mean, that's an option out there right then and there, or do they attack him? But yeah, I mean, just shock. That's all I had, and I kind of didn't know what reaction to give, just because I couldn't believe what I just saw. More disbelief than I would say with Freddie Freeman hitting the grand slam last year, because at least Freeman, in the situation he was in, he has the home run potential. But yeah, Mickey Rowe, MVP coming through today. I mean, he was honestly, between him and Yamamoto, MVP of these last 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, I also think there was some honorable mentions for MVP that we'll definitely want to talk about. But yeah, definitely, they threw the kitchen sink. So we knew that was going to happen. Each manager was going to, use all of the bullets, and I'm just so happy that the combination of bullets that we use ended up being the right one. But Anthony, are we good? Yours.
Hello, testing. I think we're good. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think Canada was trying to take me out, but yeah, I'm back, so we're good.
Yeah, because it's awesome, because we were just talking about the kind of just the pitching choices and kind of what happened that was gonna, make the all the difference in the world tonight for each team. But I kind of wanted to address this to you because you saw this guy at one of the games you went to this year. But let's go with the one that the Blue Jays used first, Max Scherzer. What do you think about him tonight?
Yeah, I think I hate to say it, but he looked really good. It's just our guys weren't getting underneath all his pitches. I think both sides, every pitcher that came out there did their job essentially. Held him at bay for as long as they could. I was actually kind of surprised on our end that we went Robleski right after. But it worked out in the very grand scheme of things. It's very funny that the Dodgers last year ended up winning the World Series solely on the bullpen, and all the bullpen guys that came out were starting pitchers essentially. None of them was a traditional bullpen arm. You can argue Robleski, but he's a starter as well too. But Max Scherzer is just going to be one of those guys. That's why I kind of had fear in my heart today that he's just going to go out there and he's going to compete. I know the stuff's not there, and you can clearly see the stuff that he once he had when he was like 10 years younger. Would have been elite today. In a different world 10 years ago, he probably goes 7 shut. Uh, Only went around, I think, 4 innings he lasted, if that was the number. But yeah, I think the biggest fear I had is that we were going to make him look like his old version of himself. I don't know if you remember during the season when we played San Francisco, when we were matched up against Justin Verlander, and I said, like, this guy's numbers have been awful the whole entire year. Like, please do not make him look like the Cy Young version of himself. And what ended up happening that game, we made him look like the Cy Young version of himself. So yeah, that's the biggest fear I had. I actually was more scared when Savage came in, because I was like, dude, if this guy has it, like, it might be a very long way to end this game. And thankful for us, he didn't have it. He wasn't as sharp as he normally was. And it's a tough situation for him too. He's only really been in the big leagues for a month, and they're really asking him to do a lot there. I'm glad he missed on that. I think it was a splitter or a slider. I don't know what pitch he threw it to Muncy. That Muncy just took absolutely yard there. But yeah, that's kind of the risk you run when you kind of ask starting pitchers to do stuff they've never been accustomed to. I know that's something like, as a Dodger, when you sign up for it and you're a starting pitcher and you don't make that playoff roster, there's a chance that you might end up in the bullpen. So I think that's kind of just the mentality you got to have going into spring training. Like, if I sign for this team, if we do make it to a long run, there's a chance that I'm gonna have to come out in that bullpen. I think the first guy that comes to mind was Kenta Maeda. He never was able to break into that rotation slot, but he was pretty dominant coming out the bullpen. And there's no shame in coming out of the bullpen. I know guys want to be starters and stuff like that, but some of the biggest outs are usually towards the end of the game anyway. So you can always solidify yourself and your legacy by getting those last 3 outs. And you'll see from, like, traditional closers, they always say, like, yeah, this it's very hard because you're sitting all day, all game, and you don't know if you're gonna get into the game. And, like, in the very last second, like, you go up one and you're like, oh, hey, you got like 5 minutes to get loose and see if you have any of your pitches with you. So yeah, I think the starting pitchers, well, quote unquote starting pitchers and relievers, all did their job. It just came down to, like, mistakes made by each one of them. Savage gave up the homer, Bieber gave up the homer. I'm trying to remember, there was another homer. Was it Hoffman? Hoffman gave up that homer to Rojas. Yeah, so even Shohei, he looked pretty good. I was actually kind of surprised he went out that 3rd inning. I probably would have went into the bullpen right then and there, but I mean, you can't really blame him. He didn't have his stuff. Clearly, he was out there fighting, but I think he was gonna do whatever it took to kind of pass the baton, which was the mentality throughout the whole playoffs. Just pass the baton. Just pass the baton. If your starting pitcher has to go 8 or 8 innings and you pass the baton to Roki, which I'm actually surprised Roki didn't get into the game, but I think the Dodgers were pretty comfortable if they were gonna die with Yamamoto, it was gonna be on Yamamoto on the mound. But um yeah, I'm surprised Roki didn't get into the game. But yeah, I think the mentality of like, especially after the NLCS when Shohei takes his trophy and he puts team effort on it. I think that was the mentality going into this this World Series, this last one. Like if we're gonna win, it's gonna be be a team effort. And again, after it's all said and done, like 2, 3 weeks, you can list the players that participated in this World Series, and you can point out like 1 or 2 different ways they impacted the way for them to end up winning this World Championship, similar to last year. So yeah, there's not much else to say. It was a total team effort today.
It's a total team effort. Yeah, I just want to kind of take a brief moment to shout out to the chat. Yeah, we saw Olga Camargo just a couple days ago, and she said, "What did I say? Stay positive. We got it." And you were absolutely right. We got it. So definitely let us know in the chat what was your favorite moment of the game, and we'll be kind of in and out, checking in, interacting with you. But yeah, just kind of staying with the pitching for just a second. I was a little at the start of the series less worried about the Blue Jays because I was under the impression they wouldn't have a strong bullpen or probably not as strong a pitching staff. But Cody, did they exceed expectations overall over the 7-game series?
Yeah, I think both teams kind of exceeded that with the pitching front because I think coming into the series, the bullpen was the biggest question mark for the Dodgers. Obviously, it was also a huge question mark for the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays this series, we were talking about in our text thread. They had a bullpen of like over 6 entering the series, and then they ended up holding the Dodgers to a 2.5 ERA from their pen entering Game 7. So clearly they were getting the job done. Dave Roberts was pushing, his hit the buttons as well for certain guys in certain situations, especially when they were leading the game. But we saw how many, times the bullpen would come in, especially in Ohtani and Snell starts where, they inherited runners and they allowed almost all those guys to score plus some. So at the end, they kind of, came together. That 18-inning performance, they were clutch. These last 2 nights, they were, everything we asked for and more, especially today, everybody that was called upon. And the starters, that's where the Dodgers had the advantage coming in today. They had the ability to use their starters in their bullpen in a more unique way than the Blue Jays did. Because, Bieber comes in, he's not going to go long. He ends up giving up the home run anyway. Scherzer, he's not going to go deep into the game. Yasevich, he's young, coming off 2 days rest. He really only has an inning, 2 innings maybe. And they really just kind of ran out of arms that they trusted themselves as well. And even the guys that they have trusted, they used in the beginning of the game because they removed Scherzer so early. So credit to them. The Blue Jays had a plan to attack some of these Dodger hitters, and they did that. They didn't really hit until today, and this game ended up going into the 11th inning. So a lot of those hits, Dodgers putting traffic on early and late. But I would say everybody in terms of defense, pitching exceeded expectations of what I had coming into this series, especially with the Blue Jays. I mean, I knew they were a good team, but coming into it, we kind of got to see it up close and personal.
Yeah, they're going to be just a team that in the future I'm going to take very seriously because they just were so incredible to watch. And they had me scared almost every time they came up to bat, and everything that they did was just so on point. So definitely credit to them and their coaching staff. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Snell because he had already faced the Blue Jays twice in this series. And I think he did great overall, but there was probably some pitches or some things he probably would have said, hey, I could have done this differently or that differently. Anthony, was tonight the Snell redemption?
It definitely was the Snell redemption day. Redemption day for a lot of guys on this team. I think they all played their individual parts, and a big reason why we're world champions today. But yeah, Blake Snell, I actually was kind of worried. I was like, I don't know how I felt about him coming out the bullpen. I think I was just worried throughout the whole game. Like, if any, you could have had like the reincarnation of Mariano Rivera down in the bullpen, and I still would have been worried coming late into this game. But I think Snell looked good. He had his stuff going for him. I just was always curious to see like how long Dave was going to have the leash for all these guys, and I think the maximum was like 2.5 innings was going to be the maximum work. I think everyone who pitched in this game roughly went around the same 2.5 time frame. But yeah, Blake Snell, I don't think he regrets making the decision he made this offseason when he decided to sign with the Dodgers. Completely out of nowhere, too, was never rumored to be here, and just like one day magically to decide to drop and edit. of him photoshopped in the Dodger gear. But yeah, I think he's one of the main reasons we were able to win this World Series. I know the numbers probably don't look well in the grand scheme of things against a good team like the Blue Jays, but he's the reason why we beat the Brewers. He's the reason why we beat the Phillies. He's the reason why we even started this off in the first place when we played the Reds. But we kind of got to see what the second half of Blake Snell. Usually his second half of the season is very, very well. A very good player, and I'm excited to see how he starts next year. He kind of has that rabbit off his back now. He's a World Series champion. No one can ever take that from him. Uh, I think the thing that haunted him the most was probably the 2020 World Series, and now he finally had a chance to kind of prove those and put those demons away. The same for Tyler Glass. Now I'm happy for him. I know he won the World Series with us last year, but he was kind of more of a spectator this time around. He was able to participate, and he pitched some very, very big innings in this game. He really kept him at bay. I know he gave up that lone run at the very end of his shift, but I think with a guy like Ernie Clement, I think he could have thrown him any pitch and he was just gonna hit it. He just was on fire. And a lot of these Blue Jays hitters, I think the baseball was just like a giant volleyball to them. They were just making insane contact and just finding ways to get on base. But I'm happy for Tyler Glass now. I think he has his crowning moment here in LA. Again, a lot of these guys who weren't able to participate last year finally got their moment and do righteousness. But yeah, both of those guys I'm happy for because they were on the wrong end of it in 2020, and now they're together. They're teammates again, and they won a world championship.
Oh my God. I see Snell. He's gonna be so happy on the buses and the parade. I feel like this is what he has wanted and talked about and why he wanted to come to the Dodgers. I'm just so excited. He's ours for a while. But yeah, you brought up kind of like those hitters like Clement, and you have Springer, you've got Vlad, you've got every time they come up, I'm like, oh, here's another one, here's another one. They all effing hit. I mean, Cody, who is their hitting coach and what is this philosophy that they have? And do we need to inject a little of that into the coming season, into the Dodgers?
Yeah, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I think he came from the Twins. So I mean, we'll find it out. But yeah, I mean, the Dodgers, they're probably gonna add some type of offensive, renaissance. The Blue Jays, the Brewers were the two teams that kind of put that at the forefront of the page. And the Brewers, they made it to the LCS. The Blue Jays made it to the World Series. But the Dodgers kind of have their philosophy right now with Skoyak, with the hitting coaches that they currently have, and the players that they've signed and scouted. Power and being selective at the plate. I mean, that's kind of been their whole MO. But we'll see what happens. I do like how they've gone about things. I know it can be frustrating for a lot of other fans out there, but at the end of the day, they got the job done. It can be, something the Dodgers take into account into their offensive plans, but really just comes to what players they sign. Kyle Tucker's a guy that they're rumored to get, other guys that they could probably fill out on the bench, platoon guys, all that stuff that's going to be into play. And that kind of goes more so with the player and how you can make them better rather than, what the team's going to do to get better. But yeah, good offense, but both these teams do it in different ways. And the Dodgers ended up being the way that won the series.
Gosh, yeah, I am so excited for just kind of see what comes next with our off-season acquisitions. And I know that the Dodgers aren't going to just, rest on their laurels. They're going to keep on trying to make us better and better. So that's going to be exciting. But I definitely want to talk about Kershaw because my dream, as you guys know, was to see him kind of come in the last game in the World Series, get an out. And you can kind of see that was probably not setting up with how close the game was in score. But I still kind of in my mind think it did end perfect. Anthony, so one, did you want to see Kershaw in this game, or are you happy that it ended with that last play that we saw him make?
No, I did not want to see him in this game at all. I said it before. I didn't want them to like kind of force a moment. I think they were gonna go Sasaki there if Yoshi wasn't gonna able to escape that mess. But yeah, I don't think this was the moment for Kershaw. He had his moment. Those 8 important pitches he had in that marathon of a game, game three. I think to him as well too, he could care less if he didn't get into this game. He ends his career with a thing that a lot of athletes aren't able to do, going out on top, winning a championship. But yeah, this was definitely not the moment for Kershaw. Had Yamamoto got out of it in the clean inning, and we don't score that run there, I think then it's definitely probably Kershaw time because you're trying to extend the game. But I'm just happy for him. He goes out on top, and he just gets to celebrate this moment now and just doesn't have to worry about picking up a baseball until his kids are old enough to start throwing it with them. But yeah, I'm happy for him. Tons of great memories, but those 8 pitches that he threw in game 3 are probably the ones that are going to stand in my memory forever.
Yeah, I'm really happy it all worked out the way it did. I mean, I had my vision, but I also wanted them to win at Dodger Stadium. But it's always time for that in the future. But I just want to kind of spend a little bit more time on Yoshinobu Yamamoto because I mean, it was kind of clear that as the series was going on, that he would obviously walk away with the MVP if this continued that way. I mean, Cody, what does this say about who he is as a person to be saying, I'm going to pitch? He pitched twice in the series, was ready to pitch in the 18-inning marathon. And he comes out today after, he pitched 90 some pitches yesterday, comes out there and he just looks like he's just unfazed by it. He just goes in and he's going to win this for the Dodgers no matter what. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think everything he did today and yesterday, you don't see it in pitchers anymore. A lot of these guys, they come up, they know their routine, they know their start day, they know they're only going to pitch once per week. Anything up more than 4 or 5 innings today, we see is like, man, he pitched his ass off today. He did everything he could to give his team the win. When even I grew up in a generation where like Clayton Kershaw, where he would go 7, 8, 9 innings. You could even argue some of his starts, if he only went 7, was like a disappointing outing. Now today, that's like a really legit good outing from somebody. But to see Yamamoto back-to-back complete games, goes into Toronto, lights out in game 6 again, gets us to a game 7, and they come in, risk injury, risk all this stuff. At the end of the day, I said to everyone, I was like, he's already paid. If he gets injured and he has to get Tommy John or shoulder surgery, he's already getting paid like $35-40 million next year to rehab. He's not a guy that's coming up and trying to work and, go through pre-arbitration, go through regular arbitration, and then get that big payday. He's already gotten the big payday. Now he's just trying to build a legacy. And so far he's done that in his first 2 years.
I'm so excited to see what he is going to do for us in the future because he's going to be such a big part of our team. I'm so excited to see how Roki develops, even though we didn't get to see him in today's game. He proved to be such a key piece for this entire month. And of course, Shohei is still Shohei, and we're going to have him for 8 more years. So it's only going to get more and more fun. But yeah, I'm just going to kind of just travel down the end of the show with just thinking of just the coolest things that happened this month. Because I was thinking, oh my God, we saw an 18-inning game. We saw the wheel play. We saw the Kirkering, thing on air where the guys were just like, oh my God, the game ended with that. We got to the CS after the game with the Phillies, where just everything just seemed to kind of just be destiny. And that's what Mookie Betts, he said in an interview yesterday, Shohei's life is just like destiny. And it's like, we're just, they're living in this time when, yes, it's a little bit of luck because there's always luck involved, but just the golden era of Dodger baseball. And I'm just really excited to see where this goes from here. But just kind of thinking of all of those things, thinking of the season as a whole, what was the highlight of the 2025 season? And then the highlight of this month for you, Anthony, watching this playoff run?
Yeah, very quickly. The highlight for the 2025 season, I think the game that will stick out to me is when I went to San Francisco and I saw Shohei pitch for the very first time. Because it introduced the idea of a piggyback concept. I think that game it was Ohtani for 3 innings, and then Sheehan basically went all the way to the 8th inning, and Tanner Scott finished it off there in the 8th. By the way, shout out to Tanner Scott, World Series champion. They can never take that from you. And from this postseason, I don't know. I think the thing that sticks out to me is that normally in the postseason, I would watch the games at home and be very like secluded from like friends and family. Like I'm like very focused in. And this time around, I was like in different places. I went to Buffalo Wings for the Phillies game. I was in Halloween Horror Nights. I was like all over the place, but I still found a way to kind of like make time for the Dodgers. So I think the highlight for me is kind of just being around the loved ones, a bunch of different friends and family, just watching this craziness throughout this.
Yeah. What about you, Cody? What's your highlight of 2025? And then, of course, this month as well.
Well, I'd say before we close it out here, obviously the winning the World Series, that's the big thing. But there's a lot of stuff. Kershaw's last game, Kershaw's last start at Dodger Stadium, his last start of the regular season was also awesome. Seeing one of your favorite players go out on top, I mean, it's going to be the highlight for me and clearly for a lot of other Dodger fans, but definitely something to take in.
Yeah, and into the next week. Luckily, we don't have to have the end of the season presser where we're all kind of like, what went wrong? It's now going to be a parade and probably a rally at Dodger Stadium. And we get to be called world champions for a whole another year. We get the gold jerseys, and one of these guys will be coming back into the promotion night. So much fun to look forward to. I'm so excited. Oh, there we go. I'm already going to buy the merch. I'm probably going to spend way too much money, but it has been just an amazing ride because it was just not clear that this was going to end this way. You know, that they had their ups and their downs, but it really showed that when they really set their mind to it, they come together, and we have an amazing team. But yeah, so that is kind of like all of my notes, unless you guys have any closing thoughts, Anthony.
No closing thoughts. Actually, I'll leave this off with you guys before we wrap up here. We should re-sign Michael Conforto. There, I said.
I don't know if I want that.
Yeah, I mean, that's bold. We'll see what else happens this offseason, but yeah, what better way to end it than, kind of we'll reflect maybe after parade day on the season as a whole, but definitely going out on top as a champion definitely makes the offseason a lot easier and more exciting as well. But yeah, that's basically where we're ended, world champs.
Oh my goodness. So yes, thank you everyone for joining us. We are just kind of, just basking in the glory of winning when we kind of thought for almost an entire game that wasn't going to go that way. But just shout out to our MVP, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Shout out to, Miguel Rojas, Will Smith, Max Muncy, everyone that made it happen, the entire kitchen sink of pitchers. We are just so excited to have gone on this journey with you. I mean, all the way back to preseason when we're talking about all of the potential for this year and the roller coaster that it was amazing. Thank you all for joining us day in, day out, week in, week out. You have all been here. We totally appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe, hit the bell notification. We are going to be here with you for the remainder of the off season, talking about our trades, acquisitions, you name it, free agency. We're going to be here still on the Bleed Lows podcast, getting it all done. And Cody, you're going to be with Steve Webb, I assume, getting more articles in and day out. Is that right?
That's correct. DodgersBeat.com will have all the content for you.
Definitely check all of that out. But yeah, definitely enjoy all of the great footage that's to come. Check out all of the stuff that's going to happen in the coming weeks for our Dodgers. And I just think it's going to be just an amazing time that we get to say we are continuing to be the World Series champions, world champions. And congratulations, guys. You did it. We are so proud of you. We're so happy as Dodger fans to get to celebrate this for a whole nother year. But yeah, definitely check out our handles. You can find me, Drea, on Instagram at Ravine Queen 1958. You can find Anthony on X at Anthony Acosta _ and you can find Cody on X at Snavely Cody 6. And until next week, let's go Dodgers.